Well, good afternoon everybody, and thank you so much for being here today. I'm sorry to rush you a little bit at the beginning, but there's a few people with sort of commitments at the other end, so I've promised them that I'll give them time to get to those at the back end of today. I'd like to welcome you all here today on behalf of Bishop Vincent to this, what we're calling the Governance Review Forum, but that was just a name that we dreamed up to pioneer this event. It's a new event for us, but we want to thank you because in a way you are participating in, I think, a little piece of history for the diocese, and I know the Bishop thinks that too. This coming together marks the end of the development of the Governance Review, to which nearly everybody in this room has participated, and it's designed in a way so that the Bishop can receive the report, and in a way the diocese is gathering around the Bishop and his acceptance of it, and it gives him a mandate in a way, not that he needs the mandate, to in fact lead the diocese through the outcomes. However, I'd like to begin this afternoon by our Acknowledgement of Country. I'd like to continue the modern Australian custom of respectful acknowledgement of the traditional owners of this land. As we gather on this sacred land, the land of the Darug Nation, let us acknowledge that we are standing on country for which the members and elders of the Darug Nation and their ancestors have been custodians for thousands of years. Here they have performed age-old ceremonies, celebrations, initiations and renewals. We acknowledge their living culture and unique role in the life of this country. Aboriginal law was to sustain and nurture all that has been created. Ancestors have danced and sung the creation stories which proclaim the sacredness of the gift. We acknowledge the elders, past and present, and their ancestors who have a deep relationship with country. While there has been great change to this land over the generations, we know in our hearts that the story and spirit of Aboriginal people will always be written in this landscape. Australia is a holy land, and the great challenge to all is to open our eyes to see the stories written, open our ears to hear the songs that have been sung, and feel the sacredness of the land on which we are standing today, the Darug land. I'd especially like to welcome Souza and Pascoe and Baird, the authors of our review, who have flown up from the isolation of Victoria, that state below us, especially for this event today. Most of you have met Susan and Murray and are aware of the passionate and professional approach that they have taken to the development of our diocesan review, and it's their pleasure, I hope, to hand that report over to Bishop Vincent today, and I invite them to the microphone. Thank you.
Good afternoon to you all. Can I too pay my respects to the Darug people and acknowledge their enduring commitment to place here in Parramatta. Thank you, Bishop Vincent, and distinguished guests. It's an honour for me and my colleague reviewer Baird to say a few words to you regarding our independent review of ecclesial and civil governance here in the Diocese of Parramatta, Australia's 5th largest diocese. This review was conducted during a pandemic, but that didn't dent our enthusiasm for the task, nor the positive engagement of those we interviewed and consulted. It was conducted after the release of the 2020 report on reviewing the governance of parishes and dioceses in Australia, and that report many of you are familiar with, The Light from the Southern Cross, promoting co-responsible governance in the Catholic Church in Australia. The Australian Catholic Bishops' Conference and Catholic Religious Australia had commissioned The Light from the Southern Cross they commissioned a review group to accomplish recommendation 16.7 of the Royal Commission into Institutional Responses to Child Sexual Abuse, which had urged such a review. In addition, the review of governance in Parramatta was also conducted in the extended dialogue that is the Plenary Council here in Australia, which is a time for reflection and deep engagement. And in some ways, we can see the conduct of this review, not that it's explicitly related to Plenary Council, but as maybe a billabong is part of the Plenary Council process. It is significant that Bishop Vincent is the first bishop to take account of the signs of the times and commission an independent review of governance in his diocese. Our time today doesn't permit an elaborate extension of the terms of reference which set out our task, but I suggest that you acquaint yourselves with them as they provide insights into the ecclesial and civil thinking behind the review. Murray and I used a social science methodology to hold a mirror to the principles, practices and policies in the diocese and to probe particular issues such as transparency and synodality. We found that there is a clear vision for the diocese to go further into the deep, which is communicated by the bishop and understood and supported by all key members of diocesan agencies and governing bodies. The bishop's vision is consistent with that of Pope Francis and emphasises synodality, inclusion and a particular concern for the vulnerable and marginalised. This ecclesial vision is complemented by a good understanding of civil governance norms and requirements. So perhaps it's not surprising that we found ecclesial and civil governance practice across diocesan entities is generally excellent, notwithstanding some recommendations for improvement. We were generally impressed with the calibre of personnel in diocesan agencies and governing bodies and with their commitment and professionalism. The prudent approach to putting the diocese on a sustainable financial footing is commended, as is the exemplary approach to risk management and regulatory compliance. We make 34 recommendations for improvement on top of 18 commendations, which are areas that we think you ought to value and continue. But in addition to the recommendations, we've got some commentary in the report that is, if you like, our opinion or an assessment, and we would recommend that people look at that as well. There's nothing, I think, more boring than hundreds of recommendations that go into too much detail. Among the more specific recommendations are that there be a person appointed to oversight governance practice in the diocese, that there be increased financial transparency, that a talent bank of potential board appointees be created, and that there be a process of discernment to identify the optimal legal form for Catholic education. My colleague Murray Baird will now speak on how governance contributes to mission, and I'll wind up our short presentation.
Good, thank you, Susan, and thank you for the warm welcome that we've received in what Jeff might call the superior state. And I also echo the acknowledgement of the traditional custodians of the land. As we left the Bethany Centre today, we're faced with a great hoarding across the light rail project. And it said this: transforming how people move. And it struck me that this might be a bit of a theme for this governance report, that this may be one catalyst for just transforming the way we move in our mission. The report we present today has been developed over a 9-month journey, and it's been a journey with the people of this diocese. And we express our appreciation to the Bishop and the steering committee members, Vicar General Peter Williams and Chief of Operations and Finance Jeff Officer, and also to Rita Rakanis, who has been meticulous in the administration of this project and always giving us a warm welcome, and Jasmine Sammy for assisting us at every stage, and also Joseph Yunes and his team for preparing the final documents. And really all of you for playing your part in this endeavour, to have us as taking up your time in interviews, but also being those flies on the wall watching your deliberations. Governance is not an end in itself. It's a tool for mission. It's those principles and values and relationships that steer and steward an organisation to achieve its mission. A set of governance rules will never work if they come without good relationships with people with a common purpose. The very word governance comes from the idea of the helm on a ship, setting the direction and avoiding hitting the rocks that could really spoil the mission and prevent it from reaching its destination. It carries us forward rather than maintains us in one place. As Pope Francis has observed, mere administration is no longer enough. And we appreciate that there are distinctives about church governance where human and divine elements mix. But in our work we found that ecclesial principles and civil principles of governance have striking parallels. Civil principles of good governance can be implemented through a gospel lens. And as our work is done in the presentation of this report, I acknowledge we've now given you as a people of this diocese work to do in discerning the way forward and continuing the journey of good governance to achieve your mission. You've demonstrated your interest and commitment to that in your work thus far, and be assured of our prayers and best wishes as you go further into the deep. Thank you, Souza.
So let me finish our brief presentation by citing the final paragraph of our review report. Finally, we note the measures identified for improvement are far outweighed by the generally outstanding governance practice in the diocese. This is led by a clarity of vision and purpose from the bishop, high calibre people in senior governance and administrative roles, and excellent appointees to governing boards. Ecclesial and civil governance norms and principles are mostly understood and adopted. There's an observable energy and enthusiasm to build an inclusive, welcoming and sustaining church in the west of Sydney. The reviewers commend the bishop and his senior advisors and staff for their commitment to exemplary ecclesial, civil and governance practice, and encourage them to continue with an ear to engagement and an eye to inclusion. This is the way of the Good Shepherd. Thank you. And Murray and I have actually signed a copy of the report, which has been beautifully presented by the communications team here. Bishop, could we provide you with a signed copy of the report?
Thank you, Susan and Murray, and it's been a pleasure on our side to work with you. Thank you. I now ask Bishop Vincent to respond and accept the report.
Welcome everyone to this ritual of accepting the governance review report. I also welcome many who are joining us through the live streaming service. It is with much gratitude, joy and optimism that I received the official governance review report this afternoon. And I thank Susan Pascoe, IM, and her colleague Mary Baird, who have carried out the review with utmost professionalism, outstanding expertise and tremendous dedication. It is not only their exceptional CVs that give them great advantage in conducting a review of this kind. Their experience in the areas of civil and ecclesial governance, review, strategic planning, and leadership makes them uniquely qualified for the task at hand. Their work, as you know, was made more challenging by the pandemic and by its unpredictable nature. Border closures and other restrictions, famously or infamously, the Premier of Victoria down there is known as Chairman Dan. That gives you an indication of the some of the sentiments about perhaps not the Premier, but the hard decisions that he had to make, and those were like moving targets for Susan and Murray, yet they were undeterred either by the external or internal pressures. St. Paul has a dictum: so long as in every way the gospel is preached. For Susan and Murray, storm, floods, or COVID rules, so long as their task was accomplished. And this task was formidable. The long list of entities and individuals with whom they interviewed was only one part of it. Perhaps the more difficult part was the human dynamics behind it. Susan and Murray rose to the challenge magnificently. I want to thank also the many people involved in the governance review process. My closest collaborators at the Curia and the Chancery play a vital part from the beginning to end. Then there are so many of my co-leaders sitting here who head various departments and councils, many of whom are here today out of their own time and expenses. My fellow clergy, religious and others who have generously contributed to the process. It is without exaggeration that this work is unprecedented in scope and importance. It will provide the impetus and the launch pad for an extensive and in-depth response. The Church in Parramatta, thanks to this review report and its commitment to reform, has an opportunity to be the pioneer in how the Church of the 21st century should look like and how it should conduct its mission. You've heard me say many a time that we cannot conduct business as usual, especially in the wake of the Royal Commission, because the ground under our feet has shifted. The Holy Spirit is speaking to us as a church through the challenges and the signs of the times. The signs of our times demand a radical gospel-inspired response. We need to work in partnership and embed the values and principles we want to embrace into the structures and practices of our diocese. We must not be afraid to embrace new, fresh, creative ways of embodying and conveying effectively the message of the gospel to the culture in which we live. The time has come for us to implement decisively the ecclesiological model articulated by the Second Vatican Council, one that is based on partnership, collaboration, participation, and empowerment, as opposed to the old way of a perfect society typified by clerical dominance and the lay, pray, pay, and obey approach. We need to create a church which is more humble, more transparent, more accountable to the faithful and the community at large. The time has come for us here to be truly a church of the baptized, and together all the people of God can create a new culture of humility, accountability, and service. It seems to me that the church cannot have a better future if we persist in the old paradigm. She will not be fully energized while the faithful are still unable to participate with full citizenship in its life, governance, structures, and decision-making processes. So I welcome the final report with its recommendations and commendations. As affirming and also as challenging as they are, they will only remain a written report. We'll need to make it into a living document, and therefore I trust that we together will work in turning the report into a fertile ground into which new seeds of hope, life, and love will grow. And so, let us continue to follow the Parramatta way of clergy and laity walking together and exercising our baptismal responsibility for the building up of the kingdom. Thank you.
Thank you, Bishop Vincent. When Bishop Vincent had input to the review of this report, one of his questions was how can he wanted a symbol or a sign of a coming together of the diocese, and he used words like diocesan acceptance, diocesan endorsement, and my own word really was, in a sense, he was looking for the diocese to kind of mandate him to put this report into action, because that's the Parramatta way, as he referred to. So today, the chairs of the three groups that represent the main constituencies of the diocese will speak by way of acknowledging the work that Susan and Murray have done for the diocese and symbolically accepting the report and the important part it will play in moulding the future of our diocese. Please welcome to the microphone Bella Reyes, the chair of the newly appointed chair of the Diocesan Pastoral Council, to say a few words. Thanks, Bella.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Bishop Vincent. Good afternoon, fellow servant leaders. As introduced, my name is Bella Reyes. I joined the Diocesan Pastoral Council along with 6 other new appointees last November and was elected as chair last February. The new kids on the block are privileged to be working with 7 other oldies. I mean, not in age, but in tenure at the PPC. And I'm pleased that some of them are here with us this afternoon. Firstly, let me thank Susan and Murray for the very comprehensive, well-documented governance report for the diocese. Thank you too to all participants who were involved in the completion of the review one way or another. As I called, an entity without governance is like a train without a track. I know you mentioned the ship, I will be mentioning the train. No matter how much potential it has, it will never go the transformation needed to get to where it wants because it has nothing directing its progress. So it is most welcome that the review of governance was commissioned by Bishop Vincent at the back of the light from the Southern Cross report, and this afternoon we are gathered for its implementation endorsement. I would like to take this opportunity to congratulate each and every one of you who have been part of the diocese for a job well done. Overall, there was a good governance practice in the diocese, as stated in the report. It was a stellar resounding report card as outlined in the commendations. It is fitting to recognize that good leadership is in the realm of that good report card. Bishop Vincent's commitments to synodality, engagement, listening ear, and clear communication of vision, as outlined in the report, were instrumental. They cut across the administrative staff, the clerics, the agencies, and the lay ministries, and that is what good governance is. It balances the need of multitude of groups. On a personal level, it still resonates to me at our first DPC meeting when Bishop Vincent said, "We are not his microphone." He is there to listen and embrace a consultative approach. Isn't that inspiring and empowering? My major call-outs to the report, as you will understand, will be with major reference to DPC, but mindful of the ecosystem which we are a part of. Commendation 8 that says, formalize the agreement to have regular engagement with the Council of Priests as a positive development. I am pleased to inform you all that this is already work in progress with the expectation of 3 C's: connection, co-creation, and communication. And along with this spirit is the Commendation 9, the particular law that every parish has a parish pastoral council. That's a big task, Richard. To all the lay volunteers here present, the report commended the dedicated involvement of the expert lay people to the various advisory bodies in the diocese is a rich contribution which adds high levels of professionalism and assurance in the governance of diocese. So thanks to all of us volunteers. And of course, the report will not be complete without the recommendations which are meant for improvements of the existing policies and processes, 34 in all, which could be challenging in groupings and connectivities in the implementation phase. There is no specific recommendation directly to the TPC, but there was a mention regarding the document criteria that will be required. Saying this, recommendations which will have a major flow-through impacts to DPC include the induction, training, and support of the Deanery Pastoral Council, the culture of synodality, and I love the words, Parramatta way of the clergy and laity walking together. How sweet these words are, if we could make this happen. Develop a talent bank, invite shared dioceses, share information. This is cross-functional and cross-fertilization at its best. Undertake an interim pastoral plan. Assess the effectiveness of communication. Formation activities for lay people. Consultation policy. Parish priests gathering parishioners' feedback. And the professional review and feedback service for priests. As I internalize this list, the common theme says strategy formation, the plan, training and development, laity and clergy, feedback mechanism, the sharing, effective communication with the media mix and channels, and adapting to the signs of times and the ways of working. So where to from here? The challenge now is how to execute, implement overall the agreed, accepted recommendations and the prioritization process. The thought process involved to ensure what we are implementing are not simply transactional, but transformational, to Mary's point. And may I add to the mix with forward thinking on the monitoring. What are the measurable outcomes? How do we measure success? And what we can subsequently improve, factoring sustainability with continuity plans required. As I echo the words of Bishop Vincent, there is much work to be done. In response, together as servant leaders, let us accompany him on the journey with great positivity. On behalf of the DPC, we respectfully endorse the implementation of the governance review. Looking forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Val. Thank you very much. I'd now like to invite Chris Maley, the Chair of the Diocesan Finance Council, to add his comments.
Thanks very much, Jeff. Bishop Vincent, fellow members of the Parramatta Diocese. It's certainly, I feel privileged to be here today, to be involved in the Parramatta Diocese during a period of great change and working in the western suburbs of Sydney. I'm a fifth generation western suburbs person. Some people try to remind me that I don't live in the diocese anymore, but I'm still in the western suburbs. I'm west of the Harbour Bridge, so I still claim western suburbs to be my planting ground. But I think it can be said that Susan and Murray have a great understanding of the Diocese of Parramatta and what their investigation was so thorough and it achieved. In the draft report, mission was mentioned mission was mentioned 46 times, parishes were mentioned 184 times. And I believe that there were 77 people interviewed in relation to the preparation of the report who gave open and honest and differing opinions in the preparation of the report. But it really did come out to me in this report that there's a clear communication from the Bishop, from his pastoral vision, that the Parramatta Way must be great for the Church in the 21st century. The report notes that Bishop Vincent's vision from the start was to foster pathways across political, religious divides, to build not only a strong Australian, but also to be inclusive and a humane society, a responsible global citizen. And hanging on the words from Pope Francis, to urge the Church to be everyone can feel welcomed, loved, forgiven, encouraged to live according to the gospel. The report also shows, I believe, great support and cooperation by all the interviewees. So it can be shown by the many comments, and the staff, I think, should be congratulated for their involvement, and Susan and Murray must take great credit for their ability to bring everyone along the journey with them to prepare what I would think can be only classified as a fantastic review of governance of the Parramatta Diocese. The tenure of this report is shown on page 2 of the report, where both Murray and Susan capture what Bishop Vincent and all the leaders of the Parramatta Diocese are doing for all the residents of the western suburb, and that is to go further into the deep. I always worry about a review that it concentrates on the mechanics and procedural matters rather than mission. Of the 34 recommendations, on my interpretation, 16 of those recommendations deals with mission of the Parramatta Diocese. This report indicates to me that the focus of this report was mission was front and centre. The remaining 18 recommendations are all government recommendations to enhance the 16 recommendations on mission. Obviously we are in difficult times, and again to capture a report of this calibre in a time during COVID-19, I believe shows the tenacity and ability of the authors, and especially it was also done on time even during this difficult time. So I think we should all recognise and congratulate the authors on the report. And being chairman of the Diocesan Finance Council, I believe it is incumbent on me, the members of my Diocesan Finance Council, to provide the highest and best financial advice we can to the Bishop and provide for him the guidance. This report does that for us. So again, I would like to congratulate the authors of the report. I think we in the western suburbs of Parramatta will get a great deal out of the report, and we believe that this report has captured the Parramatta way. So congratulations and thanks very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you very much. Our last speaker today is Father Chris de Souza, the Chair of the Council of Priests. Please welcome Father Chris.
Thank you, Jeff. I too would like to endorse my previous chairs, Bella and Chris, and all that they have said. It doesn't leave me much to say, but of course I have stuff to say. In reading the report, I was struck by 3 words that aren't in the report, but resonate with me as to a way forward. And they're words that were used in a different context by our Prime Minister the other day. But they're old words. They're old words from my youth. And those words are stop, look, and listen. So I want to thank you, our reviewers, for actually taking the time to invite us to stop, to look, and to listen. And in your listening, to voice back to us what you found. The Parramatta way, certainly. But also to challenge us in terms of mission, of how best to deliver the mission of Jesus Christ. In preparing for this afternoon, I remembered the fact that, in a very strange way, I've actually served on every council of priests of all our bishops from the very beginning. And I think I'm one of the few clergy still serving on those councils from that earlier time. What strikes me most is that this report invites us to take the vision of not so much the bishops, but of Jesus Christ, that sees that God isn't to be brought to this place, that God already is in this place. The Lord that has been celebrated by our Indigenous communities for many thousands of years, and now continues to find a different voice in this place. The Parramatta way has been here a long time before Parramatta Diocese was created. And I too endorse not only what my fellow chairs have said, but continue to offer our support and acceptance of that report. There are many challenges ahead. It would be too easy to say that, yes, we've done it all, we now just got to sit back and relax. It asks us to change, I think, not just the way we do things, but the way we are with each other. It challenges us, certainly as clergy, and challenges me as a clergy person, to be more inclusive, to widen my gaze, to look for Christ in those hidden places, to acknowledge ways of relating that goes beyond culture, that celebrates Christ with us. So I too promise, as the chair of the current Council of Priests, to work with our clergy in trying to implement and develop and take further your recommendations, and support our bishop and all the other agencies in continuing to minister to Christ and with Christ in this place. Thank you again.
Thank you, Father Chris. And thank you to Bella and to Chris Maley. The final part of today is to ask the Bishop to commission Sue Walsh as the Implementation Committee Chair for the Diocese. And the way the Bishop would like this to be done is in the sense that the committee isn't going to do any work at all, but that the chairs of committees and agency heads will be charged with the responsibility of taking this report now and inserting it into the way of life of each of those bodies. And the committee will simply be there to nudge and encourage and keep an eye to make sure that this document just doesn't become something that now rests on the shelf of the diocese, but becomes, as one of the speakers said, a living document and something that that will help us to mould the future of the diocese. So Bishop Vincent, if you would either like to present Sue with a copy. Is Sue here or is she? Oh yeah, sorry Sue.
Well, as the carpenters sing, "It has just only begun." As wonderful and promising as this document is, it is only a beginning of the journey, and I trust that all of us, through our commitment and dedication to the Parramatta Way, will make this into a living document. And with much gratitude, I entrust this document to Sue Walsh, who is the head of the implementation committee. It doesn't all fall onto her, of course, but she will work closely with us in ensuring that the recommendations of the report will put into practice, and that in time to come we will look back and ensure that we have committed ourselves to implementing what's written in the report, and thereby making the Church of Parramatta even more relevant to the situation in which we find ourselves, but even more importantly, faithful to the gospel message. Thank you.
If you would stand now, please, for our closing prayer. Thank you.
So we close our gathering with our prayer. Lord God, whose blessings reach to the ends of the earth, you show us your love in the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus Christ, whom we call Saviour and Lord. Confirm us in our faith, that we may walk together with you and one another. Open our hearts and minds so that through the implementation of our governance review, we may embody Christ in servant leadership. Unite ourselves in a bond of love and keep us faithful to all that is true. Send your blessing upon us, that what we have begun in the Spirit today may be brought to completion by your power. We ask this through Christ our Lord.
Amen. Well, thank you very much, everybody. That's it, and we're well on time. There's afternoon tea being served for those of you who wish to remain. And can I just say, on behalf of the working party, to thank you especially to Rita and Leanne for all the background work that's gone in, first of all to today, but to help making sure that we've got to this stage from an administrative point of view. Thank you very much. And Godspeed and all the best back to Victoria. We actually had a dry day for you today. Thank you.